T and XP acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, the Turrbal and Yuggera people, and pay respects to elders past, present, and emerging.
Welcome to T and XP, a couple's cozy gaming podcast.
We're feeling cozy, and we hope you are too.
My name's Alexander.
And I'm Erin.
T and XP is like a book club for cozy video games. And today, we're going to be looking at the cozy classic that is Stardew Valley.
Stardew Valley is a 2016 game made completely by Eric Baroni, I'm not sure, but he is better known as Concerned Ape. It was nominated for several awards and won the Golden Joystick Awards Breakthrough Awards and the Steam Awards amazingly titled The World is Grim Enough, Let's Just All Get Along award. Quite interesting, though, is Stardew Valley's enduring popularity. Between its release and December 2024, 41 million copies of Stardew Valley have been sold. And during the week of recording this, Stardew Valley just became the highest user-rated game on Steam, knocking the beloved Portal 2 off the #1 spot.
So, if you don't know, Steam is a digital distribution platform and storefront for PC games. It's developed by Valve, and it allows users to buy, play, and discuss games. Just as you can buy a mobile game or a game for the Nintendo Switch, Steam is probably the main way that people play games on desktop or laptop computers these days. As a quick aside, Valve are also the people who made Portal 2, so it's a pretty big deal that the people who run Steam had their #1 game knocked off its perch by Stardew Valley.
I know, but there's enough love to go around. Portal 2 is still a good game as well.
It is still a fantastic game, but it's not a cozy game.
So we will never talk about it again. Moving on, moving on. So, moving on, I have been trying to find out how long in years and months I've been playing Stardew Valley, but Steam tells you hours. So, both Alex and I have racked up over 220 hours on Stardew Valley, which is actually not a huge number for the game compared to some more dedicated players. It inspired a lot of gameplay and a lot of really dedicated fans. Alex, why don't you tell us a bit about Stardew Valley's premise and how to play?
Stardew Valley is a farming simulator where you plant, water and harvest crops to sell, raise livestock for dairy and eggs, and eventually process raw produce into more lucrative products like jam, wine and cheese. Designing and maintaining a farm is only part of the equation though. You'll also want to forage, mine, fish and explore for additional materials. And, while you're at it, build relationships with each of the local townsfolk. We'll discuss this a bit more later. Gameplay is set to an accelerated day-night cycle, and given your farmer needs to be tucked up in bed by 2 a.m. each night, and ideally a lot earlier than that, it will set the rhythm of the gameplay's loop. Day by day, your farm will grow a little, and the local village will slowly grow alongside you. The game is based on a premise that, after your grandfather passes away, you are left a farm in the coastal town of Stardew Valley. You grow weary of your office grind and leave everything behind to restore the dilapidated farm, make some money off it, and fix the entire local community by making friends with everyone, restoring the community centre, lowering the local monster population, and even fixing a few environmental problems.
No big deal and no pressure. But it's much more than being a farmer, isn't it? Stardew Valley, it's considered a game that perfected or improved a lot of things about this style of game.
What's interesting about this, if you're a big old nerd, is that this style of game actually existed for quite a while before Stardew Valley. I think the precursor games are mostly Harvest Moon, and to a lesser extent Animal Crossing. That said, no one had really, people had heard of Harvest Moon, but it hadn't really hit the mainstream. Stardew Valley is the one which kind of really managed to nail it and really managed to make it a lot more accessible for people.
Cool.
So in addition to farming, Stardew Valley has mining, which can feature a bit of combat, a little fishing game, cooking, interacting with the locals in the village, a couple of fetch quests, and an overarching storyline about the potential ills of unchecked capitalism. Players create a character and a farm from a variety of options. There's some pretty decent character customization options. It's all going to be pixelated graphics, but there's still quite a few cute options. Getting started in the game is pretty straightforward. The local mayor will give you your first batch of seeds and some cruddy tools to get started with. And you'll develop a little plot and just get your first few parsnips growing. From there, Willie the fisherman will introduce you to, funnily enough, fishing by giving you his spare rod. That sounds dirtier than I mean it to, but let's press right on. And a few days after that, a rock slide will be removed, and then you can start mining and adventuring to find precious ores, but also fight the monsters that live along the way.
I like how you mentioned before, you're like, there's a bit of combat and there's a little fishing game. Like, it's no big deal. The combat it's combat. It's the first game that we've discussed that has combat in it. That's kind of a big deal as well. Like, there's no gore, unless you count gelatinous blobs of slime gore or something. There's only little monsters. Most of them are pretty cute before you kill them. And there's no boss battles. This is not some kind of game where you're going to have to square off against some big boss at the end. But it is stressful in later levels, particularly when you get to the desert mines as well. So I would argue that, yeah, some of the combat's quite stressful and some of the fishing games are quite stressful, but we can talk about that later, of course.
Look, I'm going to respectfully disagree with the combat, because I think for a lot of it, if you just walk up and you mash the attack button, you're going to win 99% of the fights, except for the later desert levels.
Yeah, that's exactly what I do. Button mash fight, yeah.
So combat's pretty straightforward. Like you said, it's low stress. It's really more about exploring and occasionally just waving your sword around manically. The controls aren't hugely sophisticated. They don't need to be. They shouldn't be. There's a hit button and a special button, and that's all you need.
Yeah.
I will agree that the fishing game is an acquired taste.
And as we've said, you've inherited a farm and thrown in the towel at your soul-destroying desk job. And as a newcomer to town, you're getting to know the villagers and their likes and dislikes and backstory. Their likes and dislikes influence gifts that you might give them, and getting to know them and building up friendship with them influences parts of the game that you unlock with them as well. It does vary though, so almost all characters have depth revealed to you as you get to know them. So surly Shane is actually really into spicy food and raising chickens, but he is also an alcoholic and your character helps him reassess his lifestyle. Between the tiny but annoying monsters in the mine, the wizard who lives in the forest, and the helpful Jumino fairies who have you leaving resources in the community centre, you realise the world does have magic in it, and if you play long enough, you'll discover people and tools that will help you harness the magic too. There really is no one event that shows the end of the game, but there are a surprising number of areas to unlock and new people to meet in Stardew Valley. Helping various characters and getting your friendship strong, denoted by a heart rating system you can check at any time, allows these areas and subplots to unlock.
So the central quest focuses on the dilapidated community centre. The mayor will show you around there and just complain that, it's run down. It used to be the heart of the community and it's an analogy for how things are.
And also, what's that in the corner?
I'm glad you asked, Erin, because you will find out that it's inhabited, infested. I'm not sure what the correct verb here is. But it's being lived in by Juminos, the little woodland spirits. And yes, once the wizard teaches you to understand their language, you'll understand that they are asking you to provide them with bundles of things you can find around Stardew Valley. So crops you can forage for or grow, things you can get off the locals, stuff like that.
Making sacrifices, essentially.
Basically, yes.
Sacrifices to your local woodland spirits. You do find, though, that some of them aren't just foraged items and things from the farm. They end up getting quite a little gourmet taste going. They want some sophisticated goods and some exotic goods at different points in time. And at one point, you just have to give them a lot of wood. So maybe they're constructing something. But they do get harder as, obviously, your own gameplay and your own skills progress and get unlocked as well. The initial question in Stardew Valley is really, what do you want to be doing with your life? And it's a question that kicks off the game. As we said, you inherit a farm and you don't really get a say in this part of the game. Your character wants a deeper, slower, more meaningful life, and they think they can achieve this on the farm at Stardew Valley. You will be faced with the dilemma of keeping the evil local mega grocery store open or encouraging the community to engage with the locally owned general store. And it seems like an obvious in-game choice, but don't forget, it's easy to forget that you are also playing the game to make money so you can buy cool and useful upgrades on your farm as well. When we're playing it, we talk a lot about, do we do a balanced playthrough where we farm a little bit of everything and maybe we have a cow and we go and, do a bit of mining and things like that? Or do we optimize everything? Make all the money, get the instant upgrades to make the maximum amount of money from day one. And you're basically running a factory farm for truffle oil or whatever it is, the crop that you decide to choose on that run through.
But I like that they at least give you that choice, that, the community centre is there if you want to try a bit of everything and you want to dip your toes in every aspect of the game. And then they have the evil Jojo Mart version where you just need to really optimize everything and just get these huge amounts of money instead.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it, there's a right and a wrong choice here.
Yes.
But it's nice that you have that wrong option if you want to take it because you're a monster.
Yes. And they do guide you towards making some good choices that help progress the game as well.
There's one other important gameplay aspect, of course, and that's deciding who you're going to date and marry. So the game sets up, I can't even remember how it is, but there's a finite number of bachelors and bachelorettes. And of course your character is trying to charm everyone, but there might be some particular focus on the more eligible townsfolk. This is something which, if nothing else, it's really interesting seeing the Stardew Valley community get stuck into it. Like, some people are like, why would you marry anyone other than this person? And then someone will say, no, they're absolutely dreadful.
Yeah, no one likes Harvey, but I married Harvey first time round, and I didn't see a problem with that.
But it's really charming, not just because you unlock a little more of the character, but you can actually get them to move into your farm, and they'll set up their own wing at the house and change the outdoor area a little bit.
Yeah, and then at 1 a.m. say, do you want to have a baby? And you should always think about this question at 1 a.m. on the spur of the moment. Like, that makes sense.
You can always choose to say no, at least. The game gives you plenty of time to mull it over at game 1 a.m. So
Yeah, and then they do continue to ask you if you want to have a baby. I feel like you should talk about this before you get married. And like you said, I want to respect the broad strokes of the later game as well. But I was really surprised at how much content there was. As a person who didn't know much about Stardew Valley when I was getting into it, I really thought it would be complete the community centre, yay, you've completed the game. And there's so much more than that. I said it's not spoilers, but you basically end up needing to unlock the desert, you unlock an island, and what else do you unlock? Oh, and you meet a mysterious character who has a whole lot more quests in mind as well. So there really is so much more content than you initially realise in terms of the length of the game. How I said it's very open-ended. You could play it for an incredibly long time, just as people have.
this is something I really want to give a big shout out to the developer for, is he's just been an absolute legend with how much support he's given this game.
Yeah.
He's added more seasonal festivals, he's added more areas to unlock, he's added, I think, a couple more characters. He really has just, done the right thing, because he could have made this downloadable content you had to pay extra for. He could have just banked all this for a sequel. He's really had this labour of love with this game, and he's continued supporting it, and the game's continued to grow into this amazing masterpiece it is now.
And he's done it all on his own.
Yes, I think if we're really wanting to nitpick, I think technically he had a little bit of help just when he wanted to make this a multiplayer game.
Oh, really?
Yeah, originally this was a single-player game. And I apologise now, Concerned Ape, if I got this wrong, but I think he just had some technical help just integrating it into various gaming platforms.
Right, okay.
But otherwise, it's just him running the show.
Yeah. I mean, we do have to be careful what we say. All the biggest gaming developers listen to this podcast. This is a good time to do a shout out to our nephew James, who listens to this on release day before he goes to bed. Hi, buddy. Okay, so speaking of volume of content and the nature of gameplay, I wanted to talk a bit about accessibility, but I wanted to talk about it in tandem with a concept that some of our listeners would absolutely be familiar with and some of them wouldn't, and that is the notion of modifiers, or mods for short. And basically, modifiers are extra pieces of software, usually not made by the original game developer, that change the game that you're playing. And a helpful mod you can download in Stardew Valley is, for example, the Townspeople Tracker, which adds the location of each townsperson to the map. It's really useful when you're trying to give someone a gift or finish a fetch quest and it's the last day and you're just trying to find out where the heck they are. But there's other modifiers as well.
There are so many modifiers. So there's cosmetic ones, just to give characters a different look or change the portraits from pixelated style to anime style.
That's pretty funny though. I haven't done that one, but I've seen pictures of it and all the characters look just way too attractive than how I imagine them in my head.
Yeah, they turn the old man living into the woods into this real thirst trap and stuff.
Yes, exactly. I'm I don't want those feelings. Stop that.
Take it or leave it. But there's other things like adding more outfits for your character, making the fishing minigame easier, adding more content in terms of characters and stuff. There's so much there.
I think the fishing one is really important because lots of different farm simulators have fishing in them. Stardew Valley is considered to have one of the more difficult skill sets needed for the fishing game. And I know you're all going to be shocked, pretty rubbish at it. And so I haven't added it, but the thought of being able to add a fishing mod that would make it easier is really wonderful from the perspective of just someone who is not ever actually going to be very good at that component, but also from an accessibility point of view. Because there's a lot of, hair trigger reflex moments while you're doing fishing. If it could be easier, I imagine that would be a lot better for people that had either, hand mobility or reflex issues as well. I think it would be really helpful.
Okay. I'm so glad you brought this up because I've been doing my homework on this and just looking at some of the accessibility mods. And so Stardew Valley as a core game, it's fine, it's not too high pressure, but the big sticking points are going to be combat and fishing, just because you really need to hammer that action button. The mods have absolutely knocked it out of the park with this one.
Yeah.
There's a lot of accessibility ones, so it's ones to make combat easier, it's ones to make fishing easier or completely automate it, especially for people who might have arthritis or something.
Yeah.
The big one I want to mention is Stardew Access.
Okay.
So that's a mod for people who are blind and as in no vision whatsoever.
How do you do that? How do you play a video game? How do you play Stardew Valley if you can't see anything?
There's actually some really good videos on this exact topic. I really encourage you to go look them up. They're usually not particularly long. I think they're about 8 minutes or so. They will do a much better job explaining it than me. But basically, they convert the entire game into audio cues and descriptions and a little radar. So, like, it'll be describing the tile directly in front of you, or you can toggle it to give you a better description of the entire map. But, yeah, again, just if you have no vision whatsoever, you can still play this game thanks to mods.
That is so clever.
It is. I will stop trying to describe it because I'm sure I'm doing a terrible job of it. And like I
No,
said, these
that's
videos
really
do a much
cool.
better job.
Well, it's about just guiding people to awareness that there might be other ways of engaging with this game, and I think that's really cool as
Yeah.
well. I was just going to mention the modifier where you can add a whole other town up the mountain, but it slows down your computer a lot. But that's actually really helpful and interesting. So thank you.
I'll also just round it out by saying that there's quite a few more for remapping the game if you have a particular controller you need to use or whatnot. Now, the mods themselves are a little fiddly to install. Some of the Steam games are very good. They're just single-click things. You do it and the mod's running. Unfortunately, Stardew Valley is not one of them. But it's not too tricky. There's a lot of really good guides, and I think there's also a few semi-automated mod installers now to make life a little bit easier.
Okay. So yeah, if you're interested, looking into mods is something that's worth checking out.
Even if you just want it for the hot homeless man in Stardew Valley.
Don't. How about we talk a bit about art and music then as well? So we've talked a little bit about the style, we've touched on a little bit about like pixel art, but let's talk a bit more about how this game looks. What do you think?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, it's pixel art, but that doesn't mean that it's necessarily super retro or pretty crude. The graphics are lovely. They are colourful, they are charming. There's enough detail that you can kind of see what someone's hair is going to look like or what,
Yeah. I think as well it's nostalgic. It does remind you of older video games, but having a more modern, updated palette as well. And it does have seasonal colour palettes. You do get snow in winter, and in the spring you get these gorgeous cherry blossoms falling, and you get different seasonal elements on screen. So in summer things sort of burn up and wither a bit, and it's really, really lovely the way they make the art reflect the seasons as well. The other thing as well about artwork and the artistic choices in Stardew Valley is the music. The music is mega important to the game, not in the sense that it is anything to do with the narrative, but in terms of how well done it is, again, done by one guy, and how appropriate it is for the scene as well. So, you go into the bar and there's that honky-tonk do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. And there's all this dreamy music for the cherry blossoms. There's really gorgeous music for the jellyfish festival in the evening. And it's just really beautiful. It's so lovely that you can actually find it on YouTube and streaming services. You can look up gentle Stardew Valley piano and have someone play it to you to go to sleep. And you can actually go to live concerts now where a live orchestra will play the music of Stardew Valley. It is just that lovely.
It really is charming, and it adds to this sense of seasons and time and what you were discussing before. It's just so atmospheric that they've done this great job of matching up the visuals and the music, and of course just the gameplay elements, certain crops only growing in certain seasons and such.
Yeah, it's just lovely. And it's to the point where, it is, you could be playing the game and even though there's no lyrics to anything, you're just like singing along. We definitely have our like do 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 do
Cha.
Do 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 do.
Cha.
And like that is a compulsion of ours now. You could do that, and yeah. And we've talked about lots of games that have really beautiful and artistic artwork, but I think so far out of the games, it's probably Stardew Valley, out of what we've reviewed anyway, that has some of the most iconic music.
Yes.
Why do you think Stardew Valley gets this genre, shamefully reduced to just being called a farming sim, so right?
So there's a lot of repetition in the game, and the big thing is that in Stardew Valley, it's not a bad thing. A lot of games are going to have a gameplay loop where you do a semi-repetitious activity. So in Stardew Valley, it's going to be the day-night cycle. And I think they just do a really good job of making sure that that's fun, that it's never this big grind, it's never this big slog, and you're like, oh, fine, I'll grit my teeth and get through this to get to the fun part of the game. Every single day in that is really enjoyable because it's just got really good pacing. It knows how deep to make each activity or how light to keep it. And I think just in terms of making this a game which everyone can really enjoy, I think it's just done a great job.
Yeah. And I mean, we will no doubt end up reviewing further farming sims in the future. But I think Stardew Valley does a great job of knowing the exact moment that it could get grindy and introducing new or novel content at that moment.
Yeah, so some of that's just going to be seasonal stuff, like you literally go through 4 different seasons in the village. But it's also going to have festivals to break up the grind a bit. It's going to have character events that when you get to know them, you'll get these little cutscenes and you'll get these story moments.
Yeah.
And it also just makes sure that, you know, you never need like a million or one resource or something. That it's pretty reasonable what you need to build the next tech item or to upgrade your farm or to buy a new farm animal, stuff like that.
Yeah. For me, Stardew Valley really taps into something a lot of us look for these days. There's a gentle repetitiveness to the game, but with enough variety and goals to work towards that you're motivated to keep playing. And I think this really resonates with a modern audience because a lot of the time, any repetitiveness in our life is not necessarily gentle. It might be grind or something like that. And, you know, novelty often comes in the form of terrible news stories or trauma or hearing about something horrible happening in the world. And so I think this really pleasant, gentle escapism where there is this, you know, this cycle, like you said, and there's this repetitiveness, but with really understandable and sensible moments of novelty in there. I think that's really helpful for the players as well.
And look, just from a gaming perspective, I just want to point out that, like I said, it's never too grindy. So one thing a lot of video games will do is they're just to try and pad out the content. They'll make you go and get 100 or 1,000 or something just to really slow the game down and just to milk some more hours out of you. Stardew Valley doesn't really do that. There's repetition, but it's still really fun and it's still really rewarding each time.
Yeah. I think one of the things that, you know, all these choices are really, really lovely. And I think it just comes back to the idea that not only is the premise of the game this idea of, you know, so what do you want to do? What do you want to do with your life? I think it has really stayed the difference because it is this question that resonates with people a lot. I think that in our post-COVID time, it's something people think about a lot as well, how they're living their life. How do they want to engage in their home? We have more people going and baking sourdough and, you know, things like that. People want to engage in these very everyday things where you're making something or you're baking something or you are going out and touching grass, literally or metaphorically. And I think that's one of the reasons Stardew Valley is just so, it's so wonderful and people really like to play it. Let's talk a bit about the coziness of this game as well. Alex, why do you think this is a cozy game?
I think it comes back to the gameplay loop. That while you are constricted by this day-night cycle, and sometimes you'll need to make a frantic run for bed when it starts getting towards 2 a.m.
Who hasn't been there?
By and large, it's pretty gentle, it's pretty laid back, and it's just a lot of fun to get stuck in and just see, you know, the farm slowly grow around you. The visuals are all lovely and welcoming, the townsfolk have these cute little backstories, the combat is never particularly scary, you're usually just fighting, you know, cartoon slimes or skeletons or bats or something. There's just not a heap of stress in this game. There's a lot of scope for creativity. And again, it just has this lovely sense of escapism and seasonality and nature and reward and yeah.
What would you give it on the cozy scale?
Look, if Stardew Valley isn't a 5 out of 5, I don't know what is.
Really?
Yeah.
See, the combat and the fishing make me disagree. Like, I love Stardew Valley. I'm going to be giving it a very high game rating in terms of what I think of the game overall. But I think the fact that it has combat, and not every cozy gamer is going to enjoy combat, and that it has this surprisingly difficult farming sim, which it's not farming sim, it has a surprisingly difficult fishing sim, which, yes, you can get a modifier to help with that, but not everyone's going to use mods. You know, most people are not going to engage with the game in that way. I just think those factors make it far less cozy, especially, I suppose, as someone who comes at gaming quite differently from you. I think we have really different game stress tolerance levels, and mine is much, much lower than yours. So as someone who really uses cozy gaming as a form of self-care, I think Stardew Valley, I think Stardew Valley is like a 2 or a 3 out of 5. It's that, when you have been down the desert dungeons or desert mines and there's all those little dragon things attacking you and you're trying to find a hole to fall down, all this stuff, and you're also then racing back by 2 a.m. I just don't think that's ultimate cozy for me when you compare it to something like packing that we gave 5 out of 5 for.
Oh, look, okay, I'll grudgingly admit you might have a point about the fishing game, which is not going to be for everyone. And I suppose with the combat, it's fairly low stakes. Like, if your character hits 0 hit points, they just get knocked out and wake up back home, maybe missing an item or two, which you can pay to get back.
Yeah, that's not bad.
But I'll agree that combat, although it's simplistic, it does have its stressful moments just when you see that green fog descend and you start getting mobbed by monsters.
Yeah, absolutely. That's hectic.
Okay, look, I still think this is really cozy, but I will respectfully acknowledge your 2 out of 5.
Okay, well, I guess then we have our first cozy rating disagreement. So that's noted for the TNXP podcast, a couples cozy gaming podcast records.
Yes, this will be our final episode due to creative differences.
Yes.
Yeah.
Goodbye. Goodbye, world. Yeah.
Oh, no, we can't stop it yet. We haven't actually given it its game rating.
This is true. Let's actually talk about that a bit. Do you want to go first or should I?
Again, I think this is an easy call. 5 out of 5 game rating. This is something which has unified casual gamers, beginner gamers, hardcore gamers. Everyone I know has got stuck into this game and loved it.
Yeah, I agree. We can still agree and move forward with a 5 out of 5 rating for the game. It's got something that, we haven't covered as much in other games. It's open-ended. You can keep playing for this game as long as you want to. There is no one end point that you're working towards. You can play for hundreds of hours should you choose to. And it's just such an interesting example of a farming sim. It nails the genre. There's other ones out there that we're going to talk about. There's other farming sims that we both really enjoy. Later this season, we're going to talk about Dinkum, which we had a blast playing. But at the same time, you can't play Dinkum, you can't play Sunhaven, you can't play any other game that has a farming component in it if you don't really acknowledge or understand that Stardew Valley did it best. Maybe not first, but best.
Yeah, and I think that's worth pointing out that this is a formula which has been copied a lot, and, we acknowledge that Stardew Valley itself was maybe an iteration of this formula, but a lot of other games have tried, and none of them quite get the balance right, that you'll try and get stuck in, and they'll just overtune one element or neglect a bit.
Yeah.
It just doesn't have that same kind of ease and simplicity and just real joy to play that Stardew Valley has.
Absolutely. And the idea that, you might be farming and hoeing something, Stardew Valley gets that really nice. There are other farming sims that's quite clunky, or watering your plants is clunky or whatever. And so Stardew Valley just finds that really great balance between those gaming mechanics that feel nice and help lead you through the game, but also being really entertaining as well. And I love it.
Look, there's one more bonus to this game, which we've kind of mentioned before, but that is just the online and real-world community surrounding this game.
For sure.
There's so much online content about this kind of fan art and fan stories even, and people putting up guides and people putting up mods, and like you mentioned, the real world stuff, the merch, the orchestral scores, and people doing these melodic sleep soundtracks of the Stardew Valley music.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a really big corner of the internet dedicated to people sharing their knowledge and experience about Stardew Valley. If there's anything that you do not know how to do in the game or you are stuck, there is someone out there that will tell you how to fix it and 10 other weird things you didn't realize as well.
The closest analogy I can think of would be something like Studio Ghibli fans or something.
Ah, yes.
Yes,
yeah.
this is something
brings
people...
it together.
Yeah, it brings people together. It's something they're really passionate about, and it's kind of elicited a lot of creativity, and that's almost this amazing little bonus you get when you play this game.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to play. The only downside to Stardew Valley is if it's your first farming sim, it might ruin you for certain other farming sims because you're going to play with such high expectations for all other farming sims that follow.
I know, it's like when you go to a restaurant and first time you go there, you get the best thing on the menu.
There's nothing wrong with that though, and that's why we are giving Stardew Valley 5 out of 5.
That's all we have time for today. Thank you for listening to T&XP, a couple's cozy gaming podcast. We'd like to encourage you to follow our Instagram account, which you can find at TNXP Podcast. And if you like listening to us, Rating, reviewing, and following are really helpful to ensuring like-minded, cozy people find us. Join us next week for the cozy driving simulator, Lake. Until then, stay cozy.
Like making 30 jars of jam on a rainy day.